Hello, my name is Sandy Adamitis, the social media director for the Page International Screenwriting Awards, and your host for the Writers Hangout, a podcast that celebrates the many stages of writing, from inspiration to the first draft, revising, getting a project made, and everything in between. We'll talk to the best and the brightest in the entertainment industry and create a space where you can hang out, learn from the pros, and have fun. Hi, I'm Sandy Adamitis.
Hi, I'm Terry Sampson.
Terry, how was your week?
It was good. I enjoyed it. We have nice weather here in the Los Angeles area after 3 enormously hot weeks in a row. So
yeah.
We're digging it.
It was brutal and it's been cool. And I feel more creative.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I want to do things. So that's way better than not wanting to do things.
Great. Now, writers, today I'm going to tell you and Terry the story of screenwriter Robert Riskin. He was one of Hollywood's most towering figures. Terry, do you know the name Robert Riskin?
I don't, but by mistake, I'd heard that he might be connected to Capra.
Yes. He's a very famous director known for, I would say, It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
Robert Riskin's body of work in Hollywood during the 1930s and 1940s included 6 films by the director, Frank Capra: Platinum Blonde, America Madness, It Happened One Night, which earned Riskin an Oscar.
Yeah.
Mr. Deed Goes to Town, Lost Horizon, and Meet John Doe. Riskin was like a character from one of his films. He's a self-made man who didn't graduate from a prestigious college. In fact, he didn't go to college at all.
Wow.
Robert was born on the Lower East Side of New York City on March 30th, 1897. He was one of 5 children born to parents Jacob and Bessie, immigrants from Tsarist Russia. Family legend says Jacob stole horses from the army only to sell them back to the military for profit. Pretty smart.
Yes, let's celebrate that.
I'm sure he had other jobs, but this is...
Besides horse thief?
But he was also a horse thief. No, it was Tsarist Russia.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know.
I think things like that happened every day.
Yeah. The family moved around a lot when Riskin was small. They went from New York to Baltimore to Philadelphia and finally settled in Brooklyn. Riskin and his brothers used to sell, I found this so interesting, they used to sell the Saturday Evening Post on the corner from where they lived. And the Saturday Evening Post is kind of known for its sentimental common person stories. Mm-hmm. And that's what Riskin kind of, his whole career ended up being based on. Yeah. He knew how to bring across really great dialogue of the common man. So, maybe it all started on that corner. At 13, Riskin dropped out of school to be an office boy at a textile company. The owners of the textile company really liked Riskin. They thought he was smart and they really appreciated his glib personality. And they ultimately made him an office manager. That's pretty good.
That's good. When he went up to manager, or take him a little longer?
I think he was probably around 16, 17.
Wow, even that. 16.
Yeah.
Oh, he was killing it.
Yeah, he's killing it. We happened to be talking about luck before we started recording this podcast. You had actually brought up luck and how it...
I think it's the big change. And you have other feelings about it, but I think we both, without question, think luck is the great thing to have.
Yes, luck is important.
Yeah.
The partners in the textile company had a side hustle. They poured money into a company in Florida that made silent comedy shorts for the famous Players Lasky, later to become Paramount Pictures.
Wow.
Yep. The textile partners decided to send the then 17-year-old Riskin down to Jacksonville, Florida, to run the company. Riskin had no idea how to run a movie company, but he did have some knowledge of the theater because he used to sneak into vaudeville playhouses back in Flatbush and write down the jokes and sketches using Pitman's shorthand. Do you know what Pitman's shorthand is?
Nope.
It's dashes and curls, and it's a way of writing where you just use abbreviations and figures.
Is that related in any way to how they record a court case?
That is, well, imagine back in the day before they had the court reporter machine. Yeah. I'm sure they probably used the Pitman. I'm used to it. It used to be like shorthand for secretaries, you know, Grace, get in here and take down a letter. And a lot of the very old-timey secretaries knew shorthand. In 1917, Riskin was 20. He had money in the bank, but it was all interrupted by the First World War. Riskin enlisted in the Navy. Unfortunately, we don't know very much about what happened to him when he was in the Navy, but nobody thinks he saw combat. After the war was over, Riskin found himself back in New York, but without a job. His older brother, Everett, I love an older brother scheme.
Okay.
His older brother, Everett, talked him into presenting themselves as movie producers. Why not?
Yeah.
After all, Riskin's pre-war job made it so. They failed at being movie producers. And Everett decided to switch them to being Broadway producers.
That's not that big a leap.
Yeah, they're in New York, so.
Yeah.
With Riskin's writing backing him up this time, they actually had some success with Bless You Sister, and in 1930, Many a Slip. They were both written and directed by Riskin. Now, around this time, studios began courting Broadway scribes in search for talent. Riskin sent Many a Slip to the Warner Brothers office in New York. Many a Slip is about a newspaper man tricked into marriage by a girlfriend who fakes a pregnancy. Riskin was called into the Warner Brothers office in New York, and he was offered $10,000 on the spot for Many a Slip. Now,
that sounds like a huge amount of money.
Yeah, I mean, the Depressions, there's rumbles of the Depression. It's all happening. Now, even though $10,000 was a lot of money, Riskin said no.
What?
Yep. And he headed for the elevator. Pushed that button, the doors started to open, and out ran a lawyer from one of the offices and stopped Riskin and offered him $30,000.
Wow. I love this guy now. That's amazing.
Riskin said yes.
He put the risk in risking.
Yes,
Come on.
He did.
Wow.
Flush with the sale, Riskin decided to head to Hollywood. It was time to go to Hollywood. And his brother Everett tagged along. They were both signed to Columbia, run by Harry Cohen. Everett became a staff producer, and Riskin continued to write. Now, I'm trying to remember, but Columbia started up on Hollywood Boulevard, and where Sunset Gower is, is where Columbia started. And that's where the famous courtyard is, where Cohen would put all the writers, and he would get upset when he didn't hear the clacking of the typewriters. And then there was that other story I think I told on a previous podcast where if a writer happened to see, Cohen coming down the courtyard, they would yell, "I figured out the second act!" They would.
Then they'd all start
then they would all start typing. I used to go sit in that courtyard because I knew that story a long time ago when I was working at Sunset Gower. And
now, this is an open courtyard with no roof over it?
It's an open courtyard.
So the Royal Typewriters
no roof,
are
and
out there.
It was a lot of wood. I remember a lot of wood and a lot of, just single offices. And it was very much like in Sunset Boulevard. Do you remember the scene where they wrote together on the Paramount lot? It was just it looked like verandas. They had balconies, verandas. I don't know how to explain it. But I had left Sunset Gower and went back a couple years ago, and it was a real courtyard. And I remember it seemed to be, they concreted it all over just to do low maintenance. And it broke my heart because I felt like that shrubbery and that grass and the absorbed the spirit of all those writers back then. But,
maybe.
Now they just kind of painted it, made it look really sterile and clean.
Oh,
So not overgrown courtyard anymore.
Now, in your writing history, do you ever go outside to write?
I will sit outside.
Are you thinking out there, or are you typing?
And write
Because I got to hear some tick-tack-tack-a-tiki. I got to hear that, or you're not really writing.
I don't know. I'm always I will go to restaurants or coffee shops and type outside. Yeah. Mostly when I'm home, I want to be near the internet. I don't know. How about you?
Always inside. I've tried it. I just forget you can go outside, actually. That's part of it.
Exactly.
Then coffee shops are completely, cannot do that at all.
You can't do the coffee shop.
No, because I want to know, I can't believe this woman's eating this. Where did she get it? It looks delicious. Mm-hmm. And now I can only think about the pastry she's eating. And I want to, the smell of the coffee is pretty good. What coffee has she had? I'm so derailed so easily. I have to stay in.
I've thought about this. I grew up in a very small house with a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
You couldn't get away from noise. You just had to live and work amongst your family. Oh. Now, did you have do you have your own bedroom or something when you were growing up? Did you have a place to go?
Yeah, I'm that kind of fancy boy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had my own room. Because I have a sister, and that would have been super awkward.
Yeah.
But my dad, his typewriter was, so in our house, everybody slept upstairs. Downstairs had no bedroom.
Oh, you had stairs in your house.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
There's no end to the luxury in our little house. But my dad's typewriter was up in the bedroom so that when everyone was down, because I'm just thinking of this as you say this now, everyone's always downstairs because that's where all the action is. There's a TV, pets, food. So we're all staying on the front, and my dad's up there. Right? And that probably influenced me to think, if you're really working,
yes,
you have to be by yourself.
Yes.
Now that I'm just saying that must be the way. It's always been that way with me.
Now I'm going to jump to another story. Carlton Cuse, very famous showrunner, Lost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's really, really talented. I work for Carlton Cuse, and I used to watch. It was one of the first times that I watched a writer have to, in the middle of a very, very busy workday, edits. He's in the room, breaking story with writers. He would just go into his office in the middle of the day, turn on music, and turn out page after page after page after page in the middle of a workday. And I, too, used to think, right, you just have to be,
in the mood,
swept away and in the mood, and, especially not in TV. So impressed me about Carlton. And now I see other showrunners have to, do the same thing. But I must say, I have never seen another showrunner turn out and crank out pages like Carlton Cuse can.
Good for him.
Yeah, he's a really talented guy.
Now, I'd love to hear people's reaction if they want to post comments on this question, because I'm curious about it. I'm so particular about when I can get something good done. Mm-hmm. And it's always between the hours of 7 in the morning. That's if I've got my, if I got it together at that hour, not every day, obviously. So I have 3 hours, and I can do great work, according to me.
Right.
And in that time, and I don't care how hard I try to pick up at 1 o'clock or whatever, nothing I write after that is worth it. I can edit.
Yeah. Edit, yes.
Edit I can do, but I can't come up with, say, the dialogue that I could at 9 a.m. And I just stopped fighting it.
Yeah.
I don't know how these people, they said, now we've got to have the Cuse guy.
Well, Vivian Lee, who has also been on the podcast, was saying during her episode, she had a baby while she was working, and she would get up with baby and sit in bed with the baby and write on her cell phone. Blows my mind. I can barely read a text on a cell phone, and she's writing her scripts on her cell phone. She says there's Final Draft for cell phone. I didn't even know that. And she says, you just have to do it. because people are waiting.
Uh-huh.
You've got 200 people, waiting for your pages. You have to do it. So therein lies how you manage to write when you don't feel like it.
There you go.
There you go. That's it.
And my whole writing career has been based on the idea there aren't really in the things that I work on.
Mm-hmm.
I've not been in that
Right.
situation. So so my point has always been, I've always been under the goal of writing something wonderful. And when it stops being wonderful, I just don't want to keep going.
Right.
I mean, I can feel it. I can look at it. I can see what I'm writing. I'm saying I'm just drifting away.
And that gets into a whole other avenue where some people think, oh my goodness, I have to get up at 7:00. I have to be chained to my typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
Typewriter. It's from you saying typewriter with your dad. I have to be at my computer. I can't get up till noon, and then I better do 3 hours. When you're just sitting and concentrating on writing, 3 to 4 hours, man, I don't think people can really create. I mean, you can, but I think the average person doesn't have to sit down and write for 8 hours.
Oh.
3 to 4 hours a day, personally think is a good
me
for
too.
just pure writing. One more story, Pam Vissay, when I worked with her, another brilliant showrunner, I think the only female showrunner of the CSI franchise.
Oh, wow.
But she had 2 boys, and she used to get up at 4:00 in the morning, get her writing done, get the boys up for school, and then head into work.
Oh, my God.
Okay. Who are we talking about? Capra?
Riskin, I believe, that was the gentleman.
Robert Riskin.
How was his writing deal? Did he get his stuff done early?
I don't know when he wrote, but I think it was the old days of screenwriters always had offices at the studio, and you got up and you went to the studio and you wrote during the day. And
he was writing at this beautiful place that you were just talking about?
Columbia, which is now called Sunset Gower, which is at Sunset Gower Studios, because it's on Sunset Boulevard at the Gower. Mm-hmm. Next to Gower Gulch.
Yep.
Which is where the old Western cowboys used to kind of be on standby. They'd go there and they'd drink, and then they'd wait for somebody from the studio to come on over and go, hey, we need 4 guys who could ride horses. And that's why it's called.
That's why it's the Gulch?
It's a Gulch, yeah.
And now there's nothing but a Starbucks there for drinking.
Starbucks, who I didn't get to see him, but when I was working at Sunset Gower, that Starbucks, everybody was going to that Starbucks because it's just inches away from Sunset Gower.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney.
Oh.
At that Starbucks, but I didn't see him.
Even he needs a little caffeine. Good for this. He's great.
Okay. Back to Robert Riskin. Riskin turned in his very first script, and it ran 200 pages.
Okay. It's an epic.
Yeah. Harry Cohen had a rule that scripts should never be more than 90 pages long, and the producer who was looking after Riskin got fired. Eventually, Cohen put Riskin and Columbia's crown jewel, the director Frank Capra, together. Frank Capra was a 3-time Oscar winner who dominated the box office throughout the 1930s. Capra was born in 1897 in Sicily, and he came to the United States in 1903. Depression-era audience loved his sentimental screwball comedies, which often focused on the common man. One of his most famous films, as I mentioned before, is the Christmas classic It's a Wonderful Life, starring Jimmy Stewart and Donna Reed.
Yeah.
Riskin and Capra ended up doing 6 films together, and Riskin wrote in some way or another on 13 of Capra's films. The first real collaboration was It Happened One Night, about a spoiled runaway socialite, Claudette Colbert, and roguish man of the people reporter, Clark Gable, who is determined to get the scoop on her scandalous disappearance. It Happened One Night is the first film to take home all 5 major Oscars.
Oh.
Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, and Best Screenplay.
Kaboom, yeah.
Boom,
Nice.
goes the dynamite.
Woo!
Riskin and Capra went on to make Mr. Deed Goes to Town, Lost Horizon, and Meet John Doe. Around a year after Meet John Doe, Riskin married actress Fay Wray, known best for being the beautiful blonde woman screaming in King Kong's paw in the 1933 movie King Kong. Riskin was a ladies' man, and the Hollywood gossip columns reported his nightclubbing with Ginger Rogers, Loretta Young, and Carol Lombard. I only put that in because we always hear that screenwriters were nebbishy and boring and bookish and nerds. Not Riskin.
Okay.
He was a man about town, while Capra was married to the same woman for 50 years. Riskin and Capra spent a lot of time together, were close, and elevated each other's name in Hollywood. Riskin eventually signed a contract with 20th Century Fox, and in December 1950, he delivered the first draft of a script to the head of production, Daryl Zanuck, entitled Belvedere, with a memo saying, "Dear Daryl, season's greetings. All I can give you for Christmas is the script for Belvedere. I hope it is just what you wanted from Santa." Those were some of the last words he would write. Yeah.
Wow, that's sad.
Yeah. I know. You kind of get attached to him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did too. In late December 1950, Riskin started complaining of weakness in his left arm and hand. One afternoon, he left work early at 20th Century Fox because he could no longer even concentrate on writing. Fay Wray immediately took him to the hospital, and she is quoted as saying, "I drove him carefully, believing crazily that a sudden stop or lane change might make his condition worse."
Yep.
That breaks my heart.
I would feel the same exact way, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exploratory brain surgery was performed. He had a clot in his carotid artery, and blood-thinning medication could have helped, but it didn't exist back then.
Right.
He was left paralyzed on the left side, dysfunctional on the cerebral side of his brain. He became confined to his bed and battled his illness for 5 years. On September 20th, 1955, Riskin died in the Motion Picture Hospital. He was 58 years old.
Oh, man.
So young.
Yeah. Remember, he was a manager at 16.
Yeah.
I mean, he actually got the full tilt boogie.
He had
out
a
of
full
it.
life.
Yeah.
He really did.
But
did you say full tilt boogie?
Boogie, yeah. Full tilt boogie.
Okay.
I have some musician roots.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
At his funeral, the actor and his friend, George Jessel, gave his eulogy. This is what he said. "The story of Robert Riskin is in 3 acts. You can write the first 2 on a joyous note. You will have to write the last with a tear." Again, crying over this. The Los Angeles Examiner described the occasion and pointed out one man who wasn't there. Frank Capra.
Wow. What was that all about?
In fact, Capra never visited Riskin in the hospital and only telephoned him once in 5 years.
And that phone call was, "Do you know where my tennis racket is?"
Sorry.
I mean, he had to play the game.
And now he skipped Riskin's funeral.
What is the story there?
In his autobiography, Capra never mentions Riskin's illness or death. Something happened between the men, and for Hollywood and film historians, it has been a mystery as to why Capra reacted the way he did to Riskin's illness and death. There are a couple theories.
Okay.
The major one is because of what happened in 1950, just as Riskin was falling ill, Capra wanted to make a remake of his and Riskin's 1934 racetrack comedy, Broadway Bill, for Paramount. This would have been a great time for one of Hollywood's best director and writing partnership to get back together.
Mm-hmm.
And Capra always maintained that he offered Riskin the chance to rewrite the movie, but Fay Wray insists that Riskin volunteered to come on board, but was refused. In the end, Capra attempted to write the picture himself, but he couldn't. He had to bring in other writers. Capra appealed directly to Riskin to let him have screenplay credit. But Riskin said no, because it was based on an original collaboration.
That's right.
The movie ended up with Riskin as a writer in the credits, and it was never clear that this alone was the explanation for any cooling of the friendship between them, but it is speculated. Do you think that Capra would really
hold a
be
grudge?
That angry over it? I'm sure if money was involved, maybe Riskin would have said, sure, take the credit. But those credits mean money in your pocket.
Sure. Well, if I may, my take on something like that would be what was missing in Capra's closet of honor was a writing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wanted that. Mm-hmm. And instead of being fair about it, he wanted the credit of writing something that he thought was going to be great, even though he didn't, it wasn't his idea or whatever. So I think that might be it. But him being a hard ass about it, if I can excuse my French.
To not show up at his funeral.
It's hideous.
After that horrible, horrible death. And he must have known every aspect of what was going on with Riskin. It was the talk of the town. Now, this was also during a period of time when the Writers Guild was being developed and directors were also starting to be lauded as auteurs.
Right.
And everybody was in Capra's ear saying, you're brilliant. It's because of you that these movies are great. It's the director. And writers are starting to go, hey, we want more money. And so there was that just rift out in the universe at the time.
Well, it certainly could have been the self-importance thing. No question. Mm-hmm. People are weird.
Some writers at one point were bad-mouthing Capra to Riskin. And it was one of moments of lucidity for Riskin where he said, you're talking about my best friend. Breaks your heart.
Yeah.
It is a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. My research for this story is an article from the Shepherd Express by David Lurson, the Turner Classic Movie website, Wikipedia, and the book In Capra's Shadow, The Life and Career of Screenwriter Robert Riskin by Ian Scott. That's a wrap for the Writers Hangout. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, like, and thrive. Till we get to hang out again, keep writing. The world needs your stories. The Writers Hangout is sponsored by the Page International Screenwriting Awards. Executive producer, Kristen O'Verne. Producers, Terry Sampson and Sandy Adamitis. Music by Ethan Stoller.